Live here at Citizen Television. What a fascinating conversation we're having with, no doubt, the best political tag team on TV. Dr. PLO Lumumba, Barrack Muluka, who's seething at the edges.
I'm happy that you have stopped apologizing and qualifying and using expressions like arguably, because that is a qualification.
So you are the best.
Well, when the Messiah comes, we shall vacate the space.
Until then. Barrack is seething. Yes, he's seething and saying he's the one who was betrayed, or they.
You know, offense, it has been said often that offense is the best mechanism of defense. Especially if you leave us waiting for you somewhere so that we can agree on the way forward. And within moments we discover that you have gone to that arena alone. And a few moments later, your attack dogs are talking about that agreement. And they are saying now those who are thinking about inheriting can forget. Now you see, there's nothing to inherit, even if you are talking about inheritance. The person whom we would like to succeed is actually the one who is sitting a kilometer from here, because he's sitting on the throne, and that is the throne that we are eyeing. So if you are to tell us that now you cannot succeed to that throne, we would begin to understand the semantics of your words. But this kind of thing, if you are saying that we are the ones who should go to take this a dramatic oath 5 years hence, I think you are wrong, because that is not what we are looking forward to. But someone must come clean and tell us what really happened. Kenyans must be told the truth. Yeah,
well, Dr. Boni Kalwale, the bullfighter of Ikolomani, was here last week, and he basically broke it down, what went down. But, you know, maybe sometimes people don't like to hear the truth.
Many times.
Hate it to hear the truth.
Many times.
Especially when it's told to their faces.
Yes, and you can ask the question, if these people betrayed you, what are you still doing with them? Why didn't you come out? Why didn't you make that pronouncement on that day that these people betrayed you? Let me tell you, I was there, I was waiting. And Boni was there, and these other people were there. Wetangula was there, Kalonzo Musyoka was there, Mudavadi was there. And they were thrown into a spin, into a state of confusion. The statement which they issued stated that owing to circumstances beyond our comprehension and control, we did not turn up at Uhuru Park, because there was every possibility that that swearing in was not going to happen on that day. There was every possibility that the unfinished business which had begun a few weeks earlier, but which had culminated on the evening of the 29th, where they agreed that we are going to meet tomorrow morning. And Raila Odinga, and I say this, and he knows in the name of God that what I'm saying is the truth. He told these three gentlemen to switch off their phones the next day, and that he would reach them using a foreign number from Nigeria to tell them where they should meet, and that call never came, and that when they reached one another, because they were not foolish enough to switch off their phones, they agreed to meet somewhere in the home of one of them, and we were there. And that somewhere along the line, one of them eventually managed to get a call from him. And in that call, which was put on speakerphone, he said, "I am marooned." And he was asked, "Who has marooned you?" And he said, "These people." And he was asked, "Which people?" He said, "These people." He was asked, "The police?" He said, "No." "The military?" "No." "Who are they?" "These people." "Where?" "I will call you and tell you how we can meet." Then he goes to the park, and you come and you start calling us cowards. We have never been cowards. I can come here and look in that camera and say we are not cowards. Somebody is playing a dirty game. You make the victim look like the villain, drag them through sewage, so that by the time you are done with them, they are so dirty, they are stinking, nobody wants to touch them.
And yet you stay in this coalition. PLO, would you stay?
I would not.
This coalition is not Raila.
But I understand what Barrack is saying. I understand him to be saying, and he'll correct me if I'm wrong, that this coalition is a coalition that brings together four individuals, and that
not four individuals, four
parties, as it were, and the individuals who lead them, and that therefore those who, according to him, have been betrayed are in the majority.
Yes.
And that therefore, if there is anybody to leave, is the party in the minority in the coalition. But it is quite clear to me, and I think if you follow, I don't speak for any of these political parties, but if you look at what has been happening in the minority party in this regard, in the context of the coalition, they have actually saying that they are now operating alone. If you listen to them very carefully, it is quite clear. And one would therefore want to see those who have remained in the coalition, because if I remember very well, even the arrangement NASA actually originated from the ANC, if I remember, from Honorable Mudavadi. So that if one were to follow that avenue, what one would want to see, therefore, is that this coalition reconfigures itself and therefore prepares to move even after the departure of the errant member, according to them.
Yeah.
No, not according to us.
Yeah.
Because, you know, philosophically, there are certain truths which endure all the time, and they're not relative.
They are self-evident.
Self-evident.
So they are not errant. We'll withdraw that word. So Barrack is my friend and he's seething, so I don't want
I've been called a coward. And some people have even said that I've been given money by Jubilee.
Yes.
My bankers know that nobody has given me any money.
That you owe them money.
I owe them money. Yeah,
I know the feeling.
I live on a narrow overdraft.
Unless he has money in his house, in the roof.
And I was never taught to do such things.
But there is something that I said at the very beginning. One of the things that I would love going forward into 2022, and I don't begrudge those who are in the NASA formation to seek the mandate of the Kenyan people, but I would want Kenyans to think out of this box. There are many good Kenyans out there, and that they should, by liberating themselves from these coalitions, if you permit me, I'm going to be very direct. These individuals, we know, they have been there since I was at the university in 1980s. They were cabinet ministers. They have been there as members of parliament.
You know that
they have been tried.
A terminological
inexactitude, as you would say.
Yeah,
but I would want to encourage new faces, such as my good friend, and many whom I'll not mention.
Right.
The activities that you see people like Ekuru Aukot or Ole Kiapi and others who will soon emerge, Kenyans should begin to look outside of these formations. So that we have a total renewal. These are individuals whom we have seen them dance. They have not danced very well. They have been dancing from stage to stage, from disco to disco. We've got to get new individuals. Yeah. And I think that as we get into this conversation, and I'm using the word disco as a term of art, so that Kenyans can think out of the box.
I think disco is appropriate because they all dance on stage anyway.
In fact, they dance on stage. It's actually, I'm not withdrawing the word disco. It's actually
don't withdraw it. By the way, speaking of which, Dr. Nelson Sechere is at the UNECA in Addis Ababa. He says, Dr. PLO Lumumba, you should consider running for president with Barrack as your deputy.
Barrack,
I've now changed
Barrack, you will be the president.
In my mind, I'll be the president.
We should consider that formation.
The last time I wanted to be deputy and he wanted to be deputy. So I have agonized over this for some time. And I've now accepted the onerous task.
Let's have our own formation.
Okay, when you look at 2022, obviously the front runner right now is none other than the deputy president. Let's face it, he's the front runner right now. He's the man to beat, if you will. Am I right or wrong, Dr. PLO?
There is a sense in which incumbency, the fact that he's in the arena, does give him a head start because he has the instruments of state.
Yeah.
But history has also demonstrated that things can change very dramatically.
Sure.
And some of these coalitions, which are cobbled, and you know that the coalitions in Kenya are cobbled along ethnic lines, can break down dramatically and with speed. So while I acknowledge that he does have a head start, that is not to mean that the thing is in the bag. Many things could happen.
Between now and then.
Between now and then.
You see, we have just seen Liberia coming out of an election.
Yes.
The deputy president ran, and we know what happened. We are aware that not too long ago, in Ghana, they had an election, and the deputy president ran. We know what happened. There's a galore of examples from the world over. We know that in the United States of America, we have seen deputy presidents running, and we have seen what has happened to them. So the fact that you are there should not make you feel very comfortable. In any event, there are strategies, lawful political strategies, and we know who the man to beat is going to be. Yes, we know.
Is it Baba?
No, it's going to be either Kalonzo Musyoka, Moses Wetangula, Musalia Mudavadi. Baba, there's an agreement that says that he can't run.
But he will. It's most likely he might run.
He will lose. I can tell him for free. He will lose.
But these three are going to want Baba's endorsement.
No.
They're going to need his endorsement.
No. They have supported him. He has never supported them. They endorsed him. Kalonzo Musyoka endorsed him in 2013, 2017. Moses Wetangula endorsed him in 2013, in 2017. Musalia Mudavadi endorsed him in 2007 and in 2017. In fact, if you are talking about endorsement, and if endorsement were a debt, you'd say that these people have paid their debts, they have paid interest, and they have paid interest on interest. And so it behooves someone to do the honorable thing. And I say this because these shenanigans, these things which you are saying, these tags of war within NASA, what he's calling spats, they are about 2022. And even within ODM itself, you can see that the succession wars have already begun. That there's Joho there who is jostling for space, and there's my good friend and neighbor, Governor Wycliffe Ambetsa Oparanya, who is also looking for space. There is Kingi at the coast, who is also looking for space. There are other people there who are crawling for space. So in fact, if you talk about succession games are within ODM, not within NASA. In NASA, it was signed and sealed. And what remains is for Kalonzo Musyoka, Musalia Mudavadi, and Moses Wetangula to agree on which one of them should go. And it ought to be rather obvious that it's going to be Kalonzo Musyoka and either Musalia Mudavadi or Moses Wetangula, regardless of who runs and who becomes the running mate.
But let's face it.
Because of very obvious reasons.
Let's face it. These three are like political orphans without Baba's approval.
Not necessarily. I think because our politics is ethnicized, there is the assumption, which is not an assumption, is true that Honorable Odinga has a hold on a critical mass of the Luo electorate, and there is the assumption that he has such an hypnotic hold on them that if he tells them to move in any one direction, they would. But I'm beginning to think that the Luo electorate is not that zombified, and that the Luo electorate will, at the appropriate time, begin to make decisions which are in our best interest, and that whoever is in the political arena will have to appeal to what is important for them as a people within the Kenyan constituency. That is the assumption. And I do not think that if the Nasarites, the remnants of it, were to organize themselves, they could present a formidable force. There's no doubt in my mind that they would present a formidable force. Is equally the Jubilites, if they were to remain as they are, they would present a formidable force. There is no doubt in my mind.
Yeah.
But you can hear me, even as you two protest about it, beginning to bring another, not third alliance, a third force.
That's a good
which
thing.
can begin to change the equation and tell Kenyans, we have had them before, we have had their formation before, begin to listen to something that is new and fresh.
Yeah.
And I think that if we can persuade Kenyans, that the critical mass of them, particularly the young people, to say that these are individuals who were there before you were born, they have been saying these things, Kenyans would possibly create a third force that could be the game changer. In fact, I suspect that the 22 elections will not be won on the first ballot.
It'll go to a runoff.
It will go to, and it should.
It will be.
Would one of those people be an Alfred Mutua type, or is he still in the system?
I don't want to talk about individuals.
Since he's balkanizing.
Yeah.
And
All right, let me ask you. Let me ask you in a different way.
Yeah.
You know, a few weeks ago, Raila said to Ruto, in no uncertain terms, "You cannot win without me." What did he mean by that?
But Raila is entitled to say that. You know, when you are dealing with the political class, and Raila has been in the political space for a long time, and whether you like him or not, there is a sense in which he has a constituency. And he believes that that constituency will do his bidding. And when he makes that statement, I think he's saying, remember, I have a big constituency. Remember that that constituency is one that I can cause to move in a particular direction. And that if I cause it to move in that particular direction, there is the possibility that you may not get it. But I refuse to believe that there is such a constituency which is zombified and under hypnosis capable of being moved.
And which is owned the way you own your pair of shoes.
Yes.
Which you can decide whether you want to sell to Shuban and Ndebe, or you want to give to your uncle, or you want to...
It's true.
Yeah?
But you see...
I like the Shuba and Debe guy.
Shuba and Debe we remember, but you see... Barrack is a little angry on this particular issue.
I'm not
seething, and for good reason.
angry. You haven't seen me. You have forgotten what I look like when I'm angry. I need to mind you.
My own view, Barrack, is that some of these statements that are made by Kenyan politicians must be taken for what they are. They are statements that are meant to have some political color, and they must not be given undue weight. But it is important to note that Mr. Odinga does have a constituency, but it is not a constituency that should be seen as available at anybody's whims, because I think that is an insult actually to that constituency to say of it that is incapable of thinking, that is, it can't be donated to anybody, and that they can be moved in any direction. I think that is the kind of thing that we should liberate ourselves from. And my only hope, perhaps is a forlorn one, is that going forward, we are capable of winning elections on the basis of the economic agenda, on the basis of the social agenda,
Indeed.
not on these ethnic alliances. Because this is primitive. This idea that we periodically have an ethnic census to determine whether a formation of Kikuyus and Kalenjins are more than Luhyas and Luo combined is primitive. And we are not going to realize our potential as a people until we liberate ourselves from primordial ethnic politics.
Absolutely. I guess, Barrack, it's safe to say that on the 26th of this month, you will not be going to the airport to welcome a certain general coming back from Canada?
You see, generals who have loose cannonballs cannot be trusted. You don't know where he will be shooting. You don't know which mask he will be pulling back. At one point you think the mask is pulling back. Then you see it seems to be actually pulling it back when he's supposed to have been pulling it back. He's pulling it back. So I don't know. So certainly I will not. He's a general of NRM. I don't know whether it still exists or it doesn't. I haven't heard about it for quite some time. NASA is the legal entity that is registered, and that is the legal entity within which we are operating and holding these conversations and discourses. Anything extra legal, certainly you don't expect me to go to the airport.
Yeah.
No, I don't operate in extra legal spaces.
And you should not. In matters such as those, when you speak about generals whose names we shall not mention, the wisdom of the occasion demands that we keep quiet. Silence is most eloquent when you speak about generals.
Well, Monica, let's go to tweets. I don't know. Silence is most eloquent when speaking of such generals. Wow, profound. Frederick Okango, he says the wage bill is in billions and we are running on empty, and we must now seize our public service workforce all the way to parliamentarians. Wage bill is just off the chain.
Absolutely. And one of the things, and I don't begrudge, one of the things that I would have expected President Kenyatta to do is to have a leaner cabinet. He has introduced another layer of individuals
the
in his
so-called
cabinet.
assistant ministers sort of.
I do not know what value they'll add, because I now see very crowded ministries. You have a cabinet secretary and an administrative secretary and a principal secretary.
We'll sort that one out for us.
I want to see, I want to hear the wisdom of it. Because the leaner, the better.
It doesn't matter, even if there were to be some remnants of wisdom in that, it is illegal, because he was making constitutional appointments which are inscribed in the Constitution.
No, but Barrack, there's a provision in the Public Service in the Public Service Act, I think, and even in the Constitution, which says that the President may create any other office in the public service on the recommendation of the Public Service Commission. So it is quite possible that, unknown to us, after these appointments were made, that there was such a recommendation, so that if you look at it purely from a legal standpoint, they may be legally cushioned. But I'm saying that even if you can find a veneer of legality for it, if you look at a wage bill which is already blotted, is it a wise thing to do?
Right.
Does it add value to the
veneer of legality, emphasis on
veneer of legality.
DM Nzomo, you say political stability, maturity is key for any country's prosperity. We are broke as a country, but the politicians and the people loyal to them are rich. Make that more than rich. And that's what they keep doing, accumulating. Elijah Nyambura, you say Kenya will only prosper when our elected leaders will stop being greedy and think of Wanjiko. Otherwise, the country will get in deeper problems than this. Does anybody think of Wanjiko anymore?
No.
No.
Wanjiko is an orphan.
Yeah.
Wanjiko is an orphan. She was abandoned a long time ago. She has no father, she has no mother, no uncles. Wanjiko is in trouble.
Yeah. Okay. Bernard Kaibe, you say, ask the duo, what's their take on the Kenya National Hospital systematic failures and leadership mess over there? And also comment on curfew in Mount Elgon region. Barrack.
Mount Elgon is recurrent. The dramatis personae are the same people that we saw in 2005, 2007. They're the same prime movers. We must ask ourselves why we keep seeing these faces whenever Mount Elgon burns. Yeah? We need to address certain individuals who are known by face and known by name. Kenyatta National Hospital is about eating, it's about tenders, it's about tenderpreneurs, and lots of terrible things have been happening in Kenyatta National Referral Hospital. We have got this latest case, and in fact, this one is possibly one of the more benign, one of the less, shall we say, condemnatory happenings, because we can say it is a factor of human error, and somewhere in between, someone needs to tell us what really happened. But have we not had cases of things like rape
Yes.
happening
In the
within
wards.
the
Yeah,
wards? Have we not heard of a person who walked into that hospital with a knife and stabbed a patient several dozens of times? And so many other things. If you go to Kenyatta National Hospital today, there are people who reside there, people who were discharged a long time ago, but they live there as home. They will go out to town, transact business, whatever, and then they'll come back to
And spend the night there.
and spend the night there.
But Jeff,
it is home.
Yes, sorry. I think the Kenyatta Hospital is the tip of the iceberg. The problem is that we have a crisis in our national health system. And Barrack has put it well, that what we have done is to convert our national health institutions as avenues of entrepreneurship. And we see this in the drug delivery services, whether it's in KEMSA and in the level 5 hospitals in the different counties. And that is why we see people going to India, to Dubai, to South Africa, and all these other places. So the problem, what I expect the Cabinet Secretary for Health to do is not to deal with the symptoms, is to go to the bottom of the matter and deal with the crisis that is in our national health system.
Yeah.
On Mount Elgon, once again, I can't agree with him more. We remember the Sabo Land Defense Forces at one time.
Yes,
we thought we had dealt with the thing.
Apart from Wycliffe Matakwei,
Yes.
the rest of the prime movers
Yes.
are the same character.
Absolutely.
Same
And
characters.
it possibly has an economic benefit to it. Some of these things have an economic angle to it.
Sure.
And I think that, I do not know, but I want to believe that the Cabinet Secretary, for the time being in charge of internal security, has received sound security guidance, so that he is merely their mouthpiece for purposes of giving it legality, and that particular curfew is designed to help the security forces to ensure that this problem is solved once and for all.
100 people being killed in a
And
month. I mean,
remember, this problem goes back to 1965. It just keeps on coming
back.
in waves.
Recurring.
In waves. 1965.
Like a bad dream.
Today.
Absolutely.
Like a bad dream. Facebook posts. Robert Mwirigi, you say, in Kenya, when one gets into public office, they're assured of wealth. People should not mind their own stomachs, only when elected. Let them know it's a duty. We said that time without number.
And we said at one time that the shortest cut to ill-gotten wealth is to join public service in Kenya and in many African countries. So one of the things that we should do, if you look at the salaries that are paid to our members of parliament, relative to our GDP, the Kenyan parliaments are the best paid in the world. I think it is only yesterday that the Canadians said they don't want their salaries to be increased. They
And
say we are being
protesting.
paid too much.
They were protesting.
Can you imagine Kenyan parliamentarians saying, you are paying us too much?
Only when hell freezes over.
But let me put in a word for them.
Please.
Because,
Go on.
I happen to lately interact
I
with
know.
them at close range, and I'll tell you something.
Yeah.
The disease begins with us, because the MP is an ATM. I have a funeral.
Yes.
I don't have somebody.
School fees. It's us.
We are part of the problem. We are co-authors of our own misfortune, in the sense that, look at who do you elect? I know there are very many good parliamentarians, but invariably, if you are a thief and you go to a constituency and you can give money to individuals, you are likely to be elected as an MCA, a senator, or a member of parliament.
Despite Chapter 6 of the
Oh,
Constitution.
Chapter 6 of the Constitution is something, you know.
It died.
I
Jeff.
once said at one time that in Kenya, sometimes we behave, those of us who are Christians, we behave as if the 10 Commandments were 10 suggestions from heaven. So in the same way, even when we read the Constitution, they are merely in our mind. Those are suggestions. And when they are suggestions, you can ignore them. So we must morally rearm. Remember, we are 80% Christians, going to churches on Saturdays and Sundays, and the rest of us are Muslims and Hindus and others. But look at the things we do. If Christ were to come today, he would be crucified in the first hour by Christians.
His own people.
Oh, yeah.
And the church leaders would
Yes,
actually
in
be
fact,
at the forefront.
the church leaders would be in the forefront saying, please, we don't want you to come now. Go away.
You know, that suggestion reminds me of Kenyans' driving habits. You get to a traffic light and it's red.
Yes.
That's
And
the
you were there.
suggestion.
It was a suggestion.
You may
As
stop.
I was coming here,
Yes.
somebody was hooting.
Because you had stopped.
Yes, because I had stopped. And I'm looking at the traffic lights.
Yes, it's
and,
red.
As he drives past me, he throws an invective.
Oh. Magishu Sam, Jeff, this is indeed terrible. A loan brings future forward, but this one is taking Kenya backward. Someone must be held responsible for this. No doubt about it. No doubt about it.
But yet, Jeff, even as we see what is happening, one of the things that we must never lose is hope. I think that this country cannot afford the luxury of losing hope. I still hold the view that we are a country that is capable of being rescued. But what must happen is that Kenyans, led by their President Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta, must now begin to retrace our steps and say, what have we done wrong and what must we do going forward?
Yeah.
And I would want, and it's good that Barrack is here, I would love, for example, a party such as ANC to now make a solemn decision that we are going to be famous for a number of things. Famous for introducing bills in parliament for selection of select committees on the state of the economy of Kenya, on the state of security, on the state of health. If they would do that, then your candidate would be doing very. I'm going to watch that space. I'm going to watch that space.
Are you announcing something? Are you saying something?
I'm saying watch.
We must
that
watch
space.
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll be watching that space.
We will. We will. Do we have any more, Monica, or should we?
You know,
Aiden,
when I look at this, it reminds me of what the great Greek philosopher said.
Yes.
That society has the habit of electing their big thieves into public office and jailing the small ones.
Yes.
So
exactly.
that is what we see.
Yes. Aiden Rasami says there's only jail for the poor. People loot and walk freely. I want to see corrupt officials prosecuted and locked up in prison. PLO, you said that earlier on today. You said you want to see people jailed.
Absolutely.
Yes, and he tried to jail some.
Oh, and they,
they
were
turned on
rabid.
him. They turned on him. And others can call press conferences in the middle of Museum Hill on the highway.
Yes.
Who does that? Who does that? On the highway with vehicles. You call a press conference.
And what amazes me, and that tells me something about the press. Are they on call? Because the press must also play its role.
Of
and
course.
there is a sense in which the Kenyan press has played a positive role.
I don't agree. Because
I want to hear why
the
you
press
don't
is
agree with
basically a mirror. It is telling you this.
Oh, then you agree.
It's telling you this is who you are.
This is who we are.
Yeah.
And this is who we are.
You are not going to break the mirror because the faces are ugly. Yeah.
But this is a mirror of a different kind, Barrack.
You go for plastic surgery. Yeah?
Botox.
You do something about the face because this is something very bizarre happening on Museum Hill.
Absolutely.
And that is what news is made of.
But you see, Barrack,
so we must come and
I want you to understand
tell
me.
you that this is who you are.
I want you to understand me. What do we give the oxygen of publicity as the media? There is a sense in which sometimes the glorification with which they are covered is what undermines that role. So that the mirror is not playing the role of the mirror.
I miss the tone of glory, and you'd need to look at it very closely to be able to see the glory.
And there is another thing that we must talk about.
Yes.
The judiciary. We forget about this because what progressively we are seeing with certain things, particularly in the arena of corruption, the judiciary, I don't want the judiciary to be condemned wholesale. I think there are judges who are doing a good job. There are judicial officers who are doing a good job. But there are certain judicial officers who are behaving as if they have been weaponized. Weaponized in the sense that they are giving slaps on the wrist. When somebody is charged with stealing 151 million Kenya shillings, then you give them bail of 1 million, they laugh at you.
They do.
In other parts of the world, the judiciary has participated in ensuring that people are punished. Somebody is convicted for the offense of corruption and is fined 1 million. Yeah. He goes home and is very happy.
He says,
yes, but we cannot.
Says, do you want it right now in cash? Should I M-Pesa it to you?
We cannot use that to then say the judiciary. There are certainly certain individuals
that have qualified that you cannot condemn. What I hate is this condemnation,
the
because
institution, because the judiciary in this country has so far discharged itself quite admirably, in spite of all the odds, in spite of being told things like we will revisit this, in spite of being told to Tawanyorosha, being told Wakora. They have remained steady and firm. And I think that they are to be encouraged to continue in that, in that direction. And the rotten potatoes, eggs, and bananas should be
weeded out, as it were.
Absolutely. Monica, let's read one or two SMSs, if we will. Thank you so much. Milton Riruta in Riruta, Nairobi, Jeff kindly asked Barrack whether national leadership is an entitlement for whatever reason or about performance or the promise of it. I think we need future leaders who stand for something and are willing to be counted.
It can never be an entitlement. It's supposed to be service. And when you get there to serve. You get there because you're competent, because you bring certain assets to that tour of duty. It's not supposed to be something that you're feeling that because I was born here, because I'm so-and-so's son, because I'm so-and-so's buddy, I'm entitled to this.
Let's face it, Peter Kenneth did that in Katanga. Look what happened to him in the end. He did a pretty good job in Katanga, let's face it.
Yeah, as the manager of the CDF. But I want us to come back to something, because I'm looking at some of the questions that are there.
Yeah.
And people are saying certain very useful things. This question of entitlement that you've asked about, I think this is what we should address as a country. In other parts of the world, people come and they have an agenda. In Kenya, when you listen to our politicians in their unguarded moments, you hear people saying, I have sacrificed. That is what is normally referred to as the martyr complex. I have suffered. Therefore, I'm entitled to office. When you serve your mother country, you don't do it because your mother country will reward you. Remember that you are lucky to be alive. There are others who died in the process. So what we are saying...
Of sacrifice.
Absolutely. The total sacrifice. So what we are saying is that if you have an agenda, then you present yourself and we vote for you on the basis of that agenda. And we have individuals in other parts of the world. Recently we saw Cyril Ramaphosa. Cyril Ramaphosa could possibly have been the natural successor of Mandela.
Correct, in 95.
But the party told him, no, in the nature of things, we want you to serve in another capacity. It did not stop him. Jakaya Mrisho Kikwete would have been the immediate successor of Mwalimu Julius Kambarage Nyerere. He was told, no. Mzee
Right.
So that this is one of the things that I think as a country we should begin to embrace. When you listen to all of these individuals, whether in NASA or in Jubilee, in their unguarded moments.
Let's say to some.
Most of them, they say, I've been here for a long time.
Which really means some.
So I deserve this.
I deserve. You don't deserve. Kenya doesn't owe anybody anything.
Good point. Joash Ngetich from Nyahururu, you say, these are two great minds, Jeff. If we all listen to them as a country, together with our great leaders, however hard the English, we're gonna go far. Kizungu Mingi. By the way, a couple more over here, SMSs. Bishop Margaret Wanjiro, very good program with great guests. I'm enjoying very much. Isaac Maura.
Yes. Well, Isaac is a good
nominated senator. Is it senator now?
Yeah.
Very refreshing
MP.
discussions there, Jeff. Quotable quotes from PLO and Barrack Muluka. Barrack is slowly coming to terms with betrayal turned inside out. The essence of political conmanship. Ouch.
Ukistaajabu ya Musa Utaona ya Firauni.
One more. Mutegi Njao. Mutegi Njao.
Yes, so he's my senior.
Excellent debate.
Yeah. Yes.
Mutegi.
Thank you.
Excellent debate.
Thank you, Mutegi.
He's my senior
Yes.
and mentor.
Yeah, And when he says excellent debate,
Thank you.
That is good.
Yeah. He also says Barrack is seething. No, I'm kidding. Gentlemen, final thoughts going forward. It's been a fantastic and very
Illuminating, the English word.
Yes, illuminating.
Confessions of the betrayed ones.
Betrayal in the city.
John Ruganda.
It's Francis Imbuga.
Imbuga.
That was Imbuga.
Yes.
Barack, that's your camera over there. You go first. Final thoughts.
Yes. You see, we've been on this merry-go-round for a very long time. And I think that time has come when, painful as certain things must be, we must accept that we need to start moving this country forward. And those people who are in the position to help the country to start moving forward must now start rolling those wheels of movement. We have had electoral injustice, and it is true. There's been electoral injustice. We don't consider that what the voters say or want eventually carries the day, and that must be addressed because it cannot go on forever. It's going to throw this country into turmoil sometime in the future. So we must address that. But as we address that, we must also begin coming to terms with the reality that there will be no election in this country between now and 2022. And so we must start addressing the necessary reforms that are going to pave the way to a credible future election. Next year, we are hearing there are going to be a census. We have also seen the IBC toying with the idea of working on boundaries, election constituency boundaries. The IBC itself, as it sits, is not credible. So we need a conversation, and we need Uhuru Kenyatta to step down from his high horse to provide leadership. We also need to divorce this question of electoral justice from what appears to be like we are telling a certain individual that we want to remove you from office. Because if we don't do that, we are not going to move forward. And the country needs to move forward. Thank you.
Absolutely. No doubt about it. Monica, which camera? 2 is this one.
Thank you very much, Jeff. I have no doubt in my mind that this country sits in a good place. But it must do certain things. Some of the things that I hear being said are legitimate, that the country needs to have a conversation. But if we are a government of laws and not of men, we must give pride of place to institutions. The institution that is created under the Constitution for purpose of national dialogue is Parliament. If there are issues of electoral justice, those issues must be brought to Parliament. It is incumbent upon the political parties to articulate their party positions and use their members in Parliament for purposes of that dialogue. I refuse to believe that you can delegitimize existing constitutional institutions by having extra parliamentary arrangements and you call them dialogue. You know, those are forums anywhere in the world, and I'm going to give examples. Recently we had problems in Zimbabwe. They were articulated via institutions. We had problems in South Africa. They were articulated in the party and ultimately in Parliament. We have had problems in Uganda. They were articulated in Parliament. We have had recent problems of coalition. Please let me be allowed to complete.
But you can't complete.
They were articulated problems in Germany, and they were articulated in Parliament. And I think that that is how we build institutions. And if you want to go out of those institutions, there must be a legitimate reason which must be articulated in Parliament. And we did that when we were making the Constitution. We felt that Parliament was inadequate. We created an organ which was an organ to debate the Constitution. So I refuse to believe that we delegitimize our parliaments and then we have non-parliamentarians wanting to operate outside of those constitutions. It's a government of laws, not of men.
He cannot be allowed to go home with that, especially as a former secretary
of the Constitution of Kenya Review Commission, which was created by Parliament.
He cannot be allowed to go. Yeah, nothing stops this Parliament from creating another commission like that. My good friend here is aware that when we were promulgating the Constitution in 2010, we agreed that there were unfinished businesses, there were unfinished matters, and we must go back to that unfinished business. And that business belongs to the citizens of this country. Parliament being just an integral part of that ownership.
But we agree. I'm simply saying, if you want to do anything, like I believe that there are aspects of the Constitution that need to be amended.
Absolutely.
They are there. Yes. But I'm saying if that is necessary, what is done
not
in
if,
countries...
because it is necessary.
People's Assembly.
It is not People's Assembly.
No, that is a rogue avenue. What you do is that you go into Parliament. When you go, there's times when being extreme is very useful.
I've never known you to be an extremist.
What is important is that if we want to amend the Constitution, and I want to see the ANC bringing a raft of those recommendations and telling us these are the things that we need to amend in the executive, in the legislature, and then we ask the people of Kenya at a referendum to speak about them. And we are not going to do that to create jobs for the boys. We must do things that are going to create value for Kenyans. But I must insist that we must build a country of laws, not of men, for short-term political gain. That is
we will come back.
To that, for sure.
To that, we'll come back.
And hopefully you won't be as seething as you are tonight.
No, when he's seething, he's very good.
He is seething. And we must have a rematch because he's sitting.
Gentlemen, a pleasure. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, bro.
You are no doubt, both of you, the best.
Absolutely.
The best
political tag team. When the Messiah comes,
then
we shall vacate this space.
Until then.
You know, these are the lizards that jump from the high rocco tree. Well, now we are saying there is nobody to say it. Let us say it. And you are urging us on.
Gentlemen, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much. Oh, no, not yet. It's not over. It's not over. By the way, did you know that you could use one of these cards? This is a Standard Chartered Infinity Visa debit card. Priority banking.
I hope we'll be given
with
that.
This, check it out. With this,
are we going
you can
to
book flights online. You can pay for hotels overseas, and you can get access to more than 800 airport lounges with your partner worldwide with this debit card. Even if you're in economy class, you don't have to be a business class passenger.
This is very good.
That's what I say.
Very good.
Standard Chartered.
I hope I'll be paid for advertising.
That's beautiful.
Standard Chartered, here for good. Thank you so much for being a part of this fascinating show with these incredible gentlemen. I hope you learned as much in this last hour or so as I did. As always, you know, if it's Wednesday, it's all about the three letters on the keyboard that follow each other, namely JKL.